Jody. Welcome to Jody TV, the diary of an inventor. In this video we're going to go into prototyping. So the various stages of prototyping: the first initial homemade prototype, the sourcing somebody to get a proper manufacturer prototype made up. I mean, you might have to go through several layers of prototyping, and there's benefits to that and there's pitfalls to that, so I'll try and go into a little bit of that. Then we'll move on towards the finished prototype, the final prototype, and the order. Now, there's a various amount of pitfalls I'll go into when it comes to ordering the product. China's not an easy place to deal with because it's so far away, and so we'll get into that. Right, I have my cup of tea on hand. Here's one I made earlier, and I'll try to sound not too produced, if you like, because I have some notes made. I keep them in front of me just to keep me on track. So I hope you enjoy the videos. If you do, hit the subscribe button now while you can, and let's get into it. Okay, so homemade prototype. In the last video I covered this, my homemade prototype. My first one, it was made out of the inside lining of a jacket, pocket of a fishing tackle bag, an old umbrella, some Velcro from, I can't remember where, and the zip, and the case was an old CD case. So out came the CDs, because they don't matter when you're in a eureka moment. I touched on that in one of the previous videos. Some elastic, I think was that one had a bit of elastic on it already, and I think I stole that off the cuff of a jacket or cuff of a jumper or something. So, and that was the first homemade prototype, which was made between the hours of about 9 in the evening and 4 in the morning, and was made with household thread and a stitching needle. So it's hand threaded, hand stitched throughout. Same with the bottom. I just stitched on the bottom there and glued on some Velcro. And so, okay, so that was the first homemade prototype, and that would give me something to take out with me and try on the lake itself. So the spring was made of an old coat hanger. I think I used 2 coat hangers, and I tightened them together to give it an extra bit of spring. But that's what it was. It wasn't very professional. It was pretty robust, but it passed the tests on the first day and worked very well. So then we went on to get the patents into play and some design registration on it, and we went through. I went seeking a manufacturer, etc., etc., etc. So once I had a manufacturer, and he could see the benefit of the product, and he believed in the product. I think he said out of 1,000 that come through his door, and he was looking at this little old prototype of mine, he said out of 1,000 ideas that came through his door, this was one of the better ones he'd ever seen. Now, I think he was pandering to me a little bit to try to get me to sign up to business with him, but he wasn't far wrong. I did see some of the other gadgets around his office, and I was kind of wondering whether I was in the right place or not. It turned out that I wasn't in the right place. We did develop, and he did do quite a bit of work for me, the first manufacturer, but in the end he kind of just dropped me and left me with no way to move forward in manufacturing. So he just literally wrote me an email, says, I'm no longer living in Ireland, I can no longer work with you, Jeremiah. So I don't know what happened in his life. I never heard from him again after that, and I don't know, it left me apprehensive. Did he go off and steal my idea after working on it for 1.5 years and noticing I was struggling with finances, and every step was a difficult step? So I don't know. I've never heard from him again. I've never met him again. But he can't break my design registration. If he does, I'll catch up with him somewhere or another. Or he could have had something genuine happen in his life that restructured his own. I have no idea, but my initial thoughts were, oh, has he robbed my idea? So you never know. You must always sign your non-disclosures. You must always check and make sure your patent's in place. Your first listing through your provisional patent application onto your utility patent application. I'll get into a bit of the patents on another video, but for now we'll try to stay on point with the prototypes. But yeah, so one of the pitfalls is you would be very careful who you're working with. So, nevertheless, we did progress to the next stage of prototyping, which was getting one made up in China. Now, this was the very first one they came back to me with, which wasn't so far off in a sense. I didn't like the bright green colour. In fact, the only thing I did like about it was the strength of the clip. The clip was a very good quality, strong clip, and very well made and very well introduced to the product. So that's not going anywhere, that will last a lifetime. I didn't like the double zip system because it would leave an angler confused as to where the zip was and which one he was using. And I certainly didn't like the bright green inserts. And then of course there's no elastic on the strap, so it's kind of less than what I asked for. There was only Velcro on one side and no Velcro on the other side, so it was lacking. This part was a formed receptacle, the same as some of the other ones, the finished prototype, same as my first prototype. It did have a very weak spring in it, and it didn't have an outer covering, so you had the elastic opening on the top and you had a bead running around the top with a very weak spring. It was absolutely useless. I ended up taking it apart and using it for a different product that was a different idea I was coming up with at a later date. But this was the very, very first. You can see also there's a kind of indentation in it, and the indentation is off center, so I would have been able to put an embossed logo on this part and then print in a design line where the indentation is. That was done on purpose, and on the inside they got it right and it's dead center, but on the other side it's not. So it was a first off prototype, so it's not made with any massive amount of due diligence. I certainly didn't like the colour, inside or out, and there was in my drawings an overhanging lip, so the zip was sunk in rather than protruding on the outside. This was, I suppose, the easier way to make the first one, and if I'd have been happy with it, it would have been an easier route in manufacturing. So, okay, we're getting close, we're not too far off. So I instructed my manufacturer about the changes I wanted to make, and he informed me that each time I get a prototype made, that's an extra 700 euros. At the time, 700 euros is a lot of money. I'm guessing that's 12 to 1400 now, a few years later. So, nevertheless, I have to get the prototype correct, otherwise I can't make a first order. So I sent this one back with the new instructions. They'd actually produced two of them, so I kept one, and they sent one back to China with all the modifications, let's say, and they then sent me back a new prototype, and so it was something more akin to what I was asking. And I'll take out that had the Velcro on both sides, and the zip was sunk in. Okay, they had changed the label because the first prototype was a long kind of a bandy label. It got in the way a bit, it just didn't suit the product. And there's an elastic on the strap, so we're getting better. We retained the clip because that's still a very strong clip. And what else did we do for that? Ah, yes. The spring inside was made of a stronger steel, but it still was very weak and kind of flopping around a lot. And then again, the elastic, you can see on camera there, it's not tight, it's just sewn on, so you can't, you drop a fly in there so he can come straight back out again, so that's not going to work very well for an angler. Okay, so we're getting closer. I informed him that I needed a stronger spring, I needed tighter elastic, and we also needed ventilation in the back end where the seams were. Excuse me. So we had the Velcro both sides. I did like the way they redone the Velcro on the bottom of this one, made a very large patch, made it very secure. And I said if they could do that, and they could lift it with a stronger spring, we weren't far off. And there's a threaded bead around the top. It's got a nice feel to it. It's yeah, we're getting close now. So I decided to order another prototype, a third prototype, and cover the costs of it. So to me it's important that I have the absolute that I want, that there's no little parts that I'm relying on getting changed in manufacturing. I want an absolute incredible product, no corners cut. So I had another order, there it is. And when I had the next prototype come in, and I opened it and I said, okay, much better looking, much better quality, nice feel to it, ventilation holes are in it, stronger spring, stronger elastic, same clip, ventilation holes all around the bottom, that's very good, strong Velcro. So I'm ticking all the boxes as I'm going along. It inserts nicely. Now it closes down neatly. Oh, and the zips work seamlessly. So yes, happy days. We've got my final prototype. After 4 prototypes, this being the 4th, I have the product that I can put my name on and I can pass on to the angler. Very important that every one of these that I put my name on is received by somebody who will use it, find it practical and fun, and enjoy the fact that it is an excellent product, and not doubt it, not complain about it, not have my name in the back of their mind as something they bought that they didn't use or didn't want. So that was the intention, and that is still the intention, integrity in the brand. So you do need a strong brand, excuse the thumbnail. And so there, I'm happy with my final prototype. Now, to order in 1,000 products, I have a price on my 1,000. I have a deal organised with the factories. I'm getting each part made 3 factories. I mentioned that in my previous video. I'll leave a link to that at the end of this video. And I'm quite excited to then book a place at a stall at the Irish Fly Fair, and I'm preparing to launch my product. I can't wait. This is going to make anglers turn their heads and go, wow, what a clever idea. Okay, so 1,000. Now I'm going to have to wait 3 months, thereabouts, for that order to be processed. 6 weeks for the order to go in, get to the factories, get manufactured, and then 6 weeks to post them to the Philippines, have them assembled in the Philippines, and then sent to Ireland, packaged and labelled in Ireland. So that is a lot of mitigating your patent. So if you're making a product in 3 different factories, each factory is making one part of the instrument, and they don't quite know what it's for. It's a spring. Very good, it's a spring. Now if they make it to specification, it should be able to be sent on to the next part, and then the casing itself, this part without a spring, is made in another factory, and the injection moulding is made in the 3rd factory. So each part would then be shipped, boxed and shipped to the Philippines, would be assembled in the Philippines, where the factory assembling them still have no idea what the product is for. It has no label on it, has no instructions in it, and then it gets sent from the Philippines to Dublin, That's where the label comes on. That's where the instructions are made. That's where it's boxed and packaged. Okay, so that's a little hint. You might find that helpful if you're developing a multifaceted product. Then try to get different parts manufactured in different places. Now, when my first order comes in, okay, so when that first order came in, it's the day before the launch. Now, I've been panicking a little bit. I've been pushing my manufacturer to try and speed things up a little bit, ring China, find out where these products are. I'm going to need them. I wanted to have them in my hand to make sure there's plenty of photographs, plenty of content, if you like, to put behind the launch, to send pictures out to radio stations and etc, etc. So they arrived in Dublin at the last minute, the day before the launch, and my manufacturer, fair play to him, bundled them into the back of his car, 400 of them, and drove them to me in Galway from Dublin the night before the launch, just to make sure I had some product. I'd been going kind of, I'd been getting on this case a little bit. I'd paid for the stall, I had everything arranged, I'd made videos, promotional videos, and spent money on that. So yet, still didn't have the product in hand. Promised it'd be there, promised it'd be there, promised it'd be there. And then it's stuck at the port in Dublin. There was duty to be paid on it. So I think my manufacturer paid the duty out of courtesy because he was late and delivered them down to Galway. Excuse me. Now, when he got to Galway, he's expecting me to do a backflip that he's got them to me. He's expecting me to be ecstatic, happy, delighted, and very thankful. But he's a manufacturer. He's took on the responsibility for making these products and to deliver them on time. And when he delivered back to me my third prototype, or less than my third prototype, again, we're back to having no elastic tightened at the top, a very weak spring, no Velcro in the bottom, even worse, cheaper zip, cheaper plastic used around the top, cheaper material used on the actual body of it, literally cheaper everything except for the clip. The clip just stayed the same. Yeah, many of them faulty zips, so the zip isn't going to work there at all. Many of them literally just flop out of their case. I had 400 absolutely useless product, and I had a launch the next day. I was not one bit happy, ecstatic, and jumping around the room with thanks. In fact, the first thing I said to him, I said, "No, that's great. You make sure you send the other 600 back to China, because I'm not accepting them. Absolutely not. And these ones you're giving me, I'll take 100 off you now," I says, "and you take the other 300, make sure they get fixed." I was fuming. He looked very confused. But that's the way I am. I'm particular about this, and now I paid the man to get this done right. And he took that responsibility on. He failed several times, he apologized several times, and then he failed at the last hurdle. I guess that's why he eventually got upset with me easily enough and decided to move out of my island and not be manufacturing my product anymore. It can be difficult, but only out of principle, and if I've paid what was asked of me and I've done what was asked of me, then it's not my fail, it's the other party's fail. So I have 100 very bad products, a launch in the morning, and I have to start pulling my Jodies apart, taking these cases apart, a whole pile of springs, and then each one, let me see if I can demonstrate this. So each spring would be, I have one ready made there, so that's handy. So each spring taken out of the casing was like this. And I needed it to be like this. I also needed these to be secured so that we didn't have a problem with the spring having a sharp edge. Now it's a very sharp edge on that spring there. And I'll show you in 1 second why that's important. So let's say I take the spring and I put the spring into the casing as is, and I don't have the ends wrapped. Okay, so we put that in there like that, and that's how that would be delivered to me. Very sloppy, not very secure, not very pleasing to the eye, and not something that's going to last very long. But worse than that is this part. Is if I get to that little sharp edge, there it is. And if you watch this, you can see, oh, where is it? There it is. You can see how easy that pops through the material. So that's then the product ruined. It is also the fact that could poke somebody in the eye, or that could cut a child's finger if a child was using this. Now, I do profess these to be educational tools, so I would want children to enjoy using them. And I would not like it if something came of harm to anybody because of a little bit of sharp edge and a bit of neglect at the factory end. So I couldn't have that, so I had to take each one apart, put that over there, and secure each end with a melted plastic seal, and then literally pull the spring out to give it strength, and that would allow me then to find a good case that has a strong elastic, and the spring relatively easy to pop the spring inside. But once you're doing 100 of them, or 1,000 of them, as the case turned out to be in the long story, I'll get to it, not there yet. So, now you have a solid case. Fully stretches out the window nice, much stronger spring, and as you can see, much more pleasing to the eye, and much more space for the fly itself. So China no good. Jody good. So the point where the end of the wire would go through the casing, that for me was something that the manufacturer just didn't get over and over and over again in each of the prototypes, until I fixed one myself and sent one back for the 4th time. So once we got the 4th one correct, I thought they'd have got the message. But once the money went through and they have it and they're progressing to produce 1,000 of these products, cheap, 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 cheap on absolutely every aspect of the item. So I have to be very careful in that in the future, because if you're ordering large amounts and this happens, you'll be sitting with 50,000 or 100,000 product, and if they're faulty and you have to fix them, well, that's a lot of work that you've already paid somebody else to do, that you're now doing. So I still have, I think I've only about 60 left in all, in total. Probably about 20 or 30 of them are just non-usable items, and the other ones are usable, but they're not going to be perfect. So I'll use them as giveaways or something like that. So it's a considerable loss. And when you're just starting out, all of those considerable losses can add up very quickly and catch up with you. So that was the flaw with China. We launched the product. That wasn't too good. It wasn't perfect launch. I fixed enough that the ones I sold, or the ones I promoted with, were good ones. 1 or 2 people did manage to buy 1 or 2 of the weaker springed ones, and I did do a recall on those, but I didn't have any complaints from those who bought them. They actually said no, they worked very well and it's fine. So me being particular is me being particular, because I need it to be perfect. I would want it to be perfect, but if somebody's only using it for 1 or 2 times a year, then perhaps that isn't an issue so much. That floppy case side of it isn't an issue. I would prefer it to be 100%. So you have your 100% prototype ready to make sure your order is correct the next time, and 1 or 2 improvements I might make on that. And then, so the feedback that came back after the launch, I would say is 99% positive. I can't say 100% positive, because I had one young man who bought one online. He asked me if I would buy it back off him. I said there was a 100% satisfaction guarantee on it, that if there was something broken on it and he wanted to send it back to me, I'd replace it. And he said, no, actually I just didn't want one, and would I buy it back off him for what he paid for it. So on that instance, consider it was just a once-off, I did. And he was happy enough with that, but that was one person out of, I guess, 890, 900 people that just didn't want it. He bought it, but he just didn't want it afterwards. He didn't go fishing, he didn't want to go fishing. So I don't know what that was about. Maybe he bought it as a gift and then tried to make an excuse that he didn't really need it. But either way, if you keep someone happy, then you're not creating a bad name for your brand. The brand itself, I think, is quite a strong, attractive brand, and I think it should carry a lot of weight with the products that I'm producing and help me get them noticed more easily. And it's kind of what a brand does. Like, if it's recognizable and you know what it is straight away, then it carries a lot of weight into your other products going forward. Final thoughts. Okay, so yeah, one of the things I would like to touch on is the whole getting this made in China and having the China fail come at you and working through that. The several prototypes, the costs involved in that, the overall cost and benefit of getting it made in China being that it's cheaper than getting it made here, is by about 40%. Could quite easily, in my opinion, be mitigated by government sponsorship for expert mentors, for better than the enterprise board. For me is a big fail. It's a national fail. The people in there that are professing to have jobs that are worth keeping are teaching people to make mirrors out of slate and sell them on the marketplace. That's not enterprise and entrepreneurship. In my opinion, that's just a self-sustaining hobby support. Certainly that's what I received when I went to the enterprise board. They seem to have a very nonchalant way of thinking about global markets. And when I'd given my product into the enterprise board, there was one thing I'd forgot to tell him, so I kind of rushed in behind him before the door shut, and he was just literally, he literally threw my product over the shoulder and onto the shelf that was behind him, and kind of waved like that, and didn't realize I was standing right behind him. So I just picked up my product again, and I says, well, we just had like an hour of my time explaining everything about my product, and you absolutely don't care for it or me or showing you respect. So I just took the product away, and I said, I'll not go back to the enterprise board. So the government could put in a much better system there. We could have a guaranteed Irish stamp on our products. We could be exporting. My intention was that with a factory, say something like the old, excuse me, the old Fruit of the Loom factory up in Donegal, which was empty at the time and had perhaps 80% of the machines that I would need to make this. So a small grant would have put up to maybe 100 people to work. Could I get any funding? Not to this day. I got a little bit of funding from the Galway City Partnership because I knew the lady who was managing it, and she looked after me and she gave me enough money to get an initial small amount of packaging done for 100 products. But that was it, and it actually cost me more than it did in the benefit of getting that 1,200 price of the packaging for 100 products. So I still paid an awful lot out, more than I would have done on design and time, so it wasn't worth it in the end. So for guaranteed Irish products and for exporting, we need to have better factory made systems, better import systems, better levies on and tariffs, if you like. I hate to say the word, but if you have make homegrown products cheaper than imported products, then you're exporting your own natural growing economy. Then you are sending all your money and effort and time to China, who don't care about you, don't care about the product. And as soon as I order 10,000 of these, Chinaman will make 100,000 of these because he knows there's market. And so you're fighting constantly. Yet if you had this made here and you were exporting it and you had a company in a factory building and making these, then the factory and the company is worth a fortune. Or at least it can be if you have one successful product. So that's the intention, that was the intention anyway, but it's very difficult when you don't get any help and when that professional help isn't there. I don't think many of the people I spoke to, it was information over the top of their head. They didn't grasp a global market, they didn't grasp a national business plan, let alone an international business plan. And who do I think I am coming up with an international business plan and figures of 20 million or 40 million or 180 million, if or not I was someone who grew up on the streets of Galway. I had a life before that. I had a life since that. Thankfully, education didn't catch up to me and mess up my mind so that I have a good critical thinking mind. So anyway, I can dream and I can dream big, but not without, let's say, a certain amount of education and experience. But you take that education and experience and then you take your projections, if you like, because that's what you're basing your goal on, is your projections. Then you need people who understand that journey, who've either traveled that journey before or have a certain amount of understanding that they know what it's going to take to get you from one step to the next. So instead of taking 2, 3 or 4 years, and I said, if it took me 5, I would be okay with that, but it shouldn't take quite even that long. Or sorry, it shouldn't take quite so long. Nevertheless, life gets in the way. You have your life trials, you have tragedies, you have traumas, you have unexpected situations that can send you off course. And those 5 years turn into 10. And here we are. Now, do I have anything else to add to that? Yes, and then at least the other point was that if we're exporting, now let's say I import from China, I package and box the 90% product here, and it's taken me some effort to get it to 90%, and I'm no guarantee that the next batch is going to be 90% or 80% or 70% of what I want. Whereas if I make it here, point being, is that if I make it here, then I can export 100% quality. I can export excellence because I can stand over the making of my own product. Far more integral, far more beneficial all around because the product someone's receiving is worth it. The product you're giving them is worth it. The time spent on it is worth it. So, I think that's okay for the video now so far. I'll leave it at that for now. The next video, after prototyping, we're going on to marketing, is it? No, manufacturing. But I have covered quite a bit of the manufacturing in this, but there are a few more points that I'll get onto. So look forward to that next video. If you are watching these videos, I hope somebody's getting something. I hope some of these little tips and my kind of rambling on about how I've done it is helpful in some way. And maybe my pitfalls, my barriers that I've had to break through couldn't be avoided a little bit. And that maybe some information on getting this product back home getting some kind of correspondence with government where they could say, okay, well, if you make the product here and you employ a certain amount of people, surely we'll give you a tax reduction on importing the materials and a tax reduction on your exports and overall profits, because you're growing your company with your profits. And thus your workforce becomes the benefit to the exchequer, because they're paying their tax on their wages. So if all that makes sense. So making it at home, far better, far more lucrative, far more integral, and far better for the economy. Simple as that, really. Now, do hit the subscribe button, please. Do hit the notification bell button. I don't ask it in every video, but it seems that when I do get an extra 1 or 2 subscribers, so it must be important to do that, because when I don't get any. Okay, so have a good day. I hope you're enjoying the video. I'll stop rambling.